make both physical and digital collectibles.
Sorry, what's a digital collectible?
Sure. I knew you were going to ask that.
Welcome to our brand new podcast. Have you ever thought about bringing your business overseas? Welcome to another episode of Curious About IP. Let's welcome our guest for today. We have Fu Zikang, Director of the IP Strategy Solutions team.
Hi Cynthia, happy to be here.
Hi. And we have Mark Cheng, Legal Counsel for Mighty Jacks.
Hi, Cynthia.
So Mark, can you tell us a little bit more about Mighty Jacks?
Sure. Happy to. So we are an award-winning future culture platform, and we make both physical and digital collectibles.
Sorry, what's a digital collectible?
Sure. I knew you were going to ask that. So digital collectible is basically, it could work both ways. It could be something that exists in the physical space. So, what you see here, which gives you access to digital content, or it could work the other way around as well. So we do have digital collectibles such as NFTs or other digital assets, which you can purchase, which then gives you real world benefits. For example, access to events or, redeemable gifts. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to ask a little bit more about the Mickey one at the end in front of Zikang.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite products.
Yeah.
So this is something that we did in collaboration with Disney, and it's to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Steamboat Willie. It's kind of like a fade or a merge from the black and white of Steamboat Willie, turning into the sort of like the color and the painted version that we are familiar with today. So I think it's got a really cool idea and really cool concept behind it. Yeah.
What about that little cat figurine in front of you?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Cynthia. This is one of my favorite. This is part of our Nian Sam series. So it's a little cat designed as a polo pao here.
Nian Sam?
Nian Sam. So like a play on dim sum and cats, like the internet meme Nians, right? So they're all dim sum or desserts designed as cats. And I'm not sure if you can see, you can zoom in a little bit. There's a little butterface here.
Oh.
But butterface is well, never mind. So yeah, that's one of my personal favorites. Yeah,
And it's part of a whole series.
it's part of a whole series. Yeah. It's part of a
Oh.
blind box collection that we do.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now what about the rest? Because I see there's some similarities, right? The skeleton here, I think for One
Yeah.
Piece as well,
For
right?
Luffy, yeah.
So it's like some unique design feature.
So the dissection style is something that we work in close collaboration with an artist called Jason Freeney. So Jason Freeney is a New York-based artist, and he sort of popularized this sort of dissection style or concept, right? And we've taken that and applied that in creative ways to well-known IP. So some of them you'll see, it's a skeleton inside. Others you'll see, for example, it's radioactive and it's like glow in the dark. Very cute, I think. For Patrick, you'll see. If you look inside, there's actually like what he had for lunch, like a little burger, a little soda, which I think is really cool. So yeah, that's one of the sort of styles that we apply to our products as well. Yeah.
And I saw that Mighty Jacks had actually raised over $40 million US
Yeah.
to
Thank you.
help you develop your product. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
But also I heard about your partnership for the new and up-and-coming spy movie, Argyle.
Yeah.
And I see that you actually brought one of the collectibles here.
Yes. So we were approached by Marv Studios sometime in 2021. So they're the studio behind this Hollywood movie called Argyle. The reason why they approached us is because the team behind Argyle are actually fans of Mighty Jacks, right? And they're fans of collectibles. So they're familiar with what we do. They're familiar with our work and our style. And I think one thing that we're really proud of is the fact that we're not just doing merchandising for the film, so it's not just action figures or collectibles. The things that you see here on the desk are actually part of the plot and the storyline of the movie as well. And so we work really closely with the team to kind of weave those two together.
Mm,
Yeah.
I see. Working with big names. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, Zikang, what are some of the IP considerations when it comes to partnering with big brands overseas?
And that's a good question. I mean, it's really hard, right? When you want to partner with a big brand, whether it's a big brand or another big boy. I think the
Yeah.
first question, I think it's always about negotiating power. I think you have to think about what kind of negotiating power you have before you work with a big brand.
Hmm.
Right. Number two, then is you have to understand what IP rights involved, right? I think for Mark's case, I think for figurines, trademarks, copyright, perhaps even image rights, registered designs, you have to figure out what those are.
Mm.
And thirdly, you have to think about how do you manage all those rights with that big partner. I think Mark will have a lot of experience in this way. You can let him share on specifics for Argyle, maybe?
Yeah. Maybe Mark can just.
Yeah, sure. So I think when we work with big players, it's really hard to try and own the foreground, own the designs that we created, because they're gonna want to own the final product, right?
So do you own the IP
No,
in
we,
this?
so we don't own the final designs. So most of these are owned by the licensors themselves. I think, people will wonder, how do you then protect your commercial interest, right? You put in all that work and then you just give it up to someone else. So I think one strategy that we've adopted is to really use a right of first refusal. So we tell them that, yeah, you guys can own the designs, but if you're going to be using this for anything else outside of what we've contracted for, then you have to offer that to us as it's kind of like a choke
Okay.
system, right? So you
Okay.
offer to us first. Yeah.
I can take a step back. How did you work with the big brand, right? What did they provide you? What do you provide them with?
Yeah. So things like Argyle, for example, they give us they tell us who the actor is.
Okay.
They tell us what the costumes are gonna look like, what the hairstyle is gonna look like.
Okay.
They tell us a little bit about what the personality of that character is.
Okay.
And then we kind of take that and we put our own spin on it. We design the facial features, the proportions, the poses, and all of that. So if you see the movie, the character doesn't look like that, of course, in person. But
And John
we've-
Cena's a lot bigger.
yeah,
right?
John Cena's like it's big, right?
So they actually, like, in a way, license you the image rights of the John Cena character, and then
Yeah.
you design the figurine. But then they own the copyrighted figurine, but then you have some rights of first refusal.
Correct. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
how does that work? What do you get to refuse first?
Right. So when they contract with us, it's for a specific purpose, right? We are gonna design the characters, it looks like that, and the merchandise, right? That's something that is exclusive to us. So we're the exclusive partners for that scope.
Okay.
And then we give them the designs and they own it. But if they're gonna use those designs outside of what has been contracted for, it's used in the movie and all that, then they do have to approach us first. For example, if they're gonna turn this into an animated series, or if they're gonna I'm not sure, maybe like make t-shirts or whatever, right? That's something that they have to offer to us first. Notwithstanding that that's not necessarily something that we do, but I think it's quite powerful, right? Yeah.
And that's a really good point, right? Because about the scope of rights, and then IP rights, you can cut it in so many different ways, right?
Yeah.
Like you have Mighty Jacks has the exclusive rights for merchandising, right? I believe, and for collectibles. But you can cut it into animated films, cut it into t-shirts and whatnot. So I think it's important that when you look at when you're managing IP rights or licensing them, then how do you differentiate or identify the different scope of rights and what do you need and what do you want, for example?
Yeah. And that's where you guys come in.
Thank you. But also, like, Mighty Jacks has, spread its wings to China, to US, and the UK.
Yeah.
What are some considerations that Mighty Jacks thinks about before moving into these countries?
Well, I think we're not the only Singapore company that's moved overseas. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of your viewers probably, also have the same concerns about registering their IP, right? Whether it's their trademarks or they've got patents or whatnot. We don't really work too much with patents, but when it comes to registering trademarks, I think it's really a question of prioritizing, because you've got a whole bucket full of trademarks. You have to decide where to spend your money, and I think it's really about doing that exercise to prioritize. Yeah.
I think the important thing about timelines as well, when you think about registration of IP, right? For trademarks, maybe it's not that critical because but if you're thinking about things like registered designs, I think things like patents, timelines are really important, because if you cross a certain timeline and you don't register it, you lose it forever.
So when Mighty Jacks enters these markets, I think a lot of our viewers have the same concerns and worries as well. But what are some of the challenges, from an IP perspective, that Mighty Jacks faces in these international markets?
Well, right now we try to do that in two ways. One is via an exclusive distribution, working with a local partner to be our exclusive distributor. The other way is via setting up our own subsidiary in that country. And I think both have their pros and cons. And the question really is one of control, right? So if you're working with an exclusive distributor, it comes with a lot less control. You're not there with boots on the ground. If you set up your own subsidiary, it's a question of cost and time, because you have to set up the company, go through all that sort of like paperwork and bureaucracy, and then you have to employ people and set all of that up and get it running. So the pros and cons to both. Yeah.
Especially for distribution, I think it's important to really protect the IP before you appoint the distributor. With certain countries, right, there are people who squat on your trademarks, especially. So they register your trademark before you go in, right? So then they have rights to trademark before you, and it can get quite difficult or quite time consuming and even costly to get it back. So if you're considering that sort of model, I think it's important that you really try and at least secure your trademarks before you enter the country and work with a partner.
Mm.
But Mark, have you guys considered joint ventures?
Yeah, so joint ventures are something that we've also tried to explore. I think specific to companies like us who are investor backed, right? I think the challenge is really if you're going to set up a joint venture and have another third party own equity in a group company, then it becomes a lot more challenging or sensitive for when you have shareholders or investors, right? Because they don't want to see another entity on the cap table. So joint ventures are possible, but you have to be aware that if you're in our situation, then there are all these additional hurdles.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark and Zakang, for your insights on IP in a global expansion. But before we wrap up today's episode, maybe we can each share one key takeaway for our audience at home. Maybe Mark, you'd like to go first?
So in terms of IP protection, I think it's good and it's important to register your IP, but also for businesses to consider that besides registration, there are also things that you can do on the ground, informal ways or very practical ways in which you can enforce and protect your IP that doesn't require registration. For example, take down notices or working with local partners to enforce. Yep.
So add on to that, I think it's really important to formulate an IP strategy, right? To understand what you need to do to manage your IP, to protect your IP, or even just to identify what IP you are going to bring overseas, right? And if you're like Mighty Jacks, right, they have the benefit of having an in-house legal counsel. I think they have external counsel advising them as well.
That's right.
For smaller companies, you might have to go that far, right? But definitely go talk to someone who's familiar with IP. Could be a lawyer, might not be a lawyer, but definitely someone who's familiar with IP and familiar with the country. And then that's where you can get good advice around how do you manage your trademarks as you expand overseas.
Well, a big thank you to Mark and Zakang for joining us today for today's episode. And thank you to everyone for listening in at home. And we look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Until then, remember to stay curious, stay informed, and stay tuned for more episodes. Bye for now.